Hi, this is Dan at Invest, Rent to Own. This episode is about my personal story with real estate over the years. Start with how I got started, how it's progressed over the years, and where I'm at today. I hope that it'll give you an idea of where I've been, the struggles that I've had, to let you know that it's not all roses all the time. So the story begins in 2001. I was advised as an Air Force lieutenant that I needed to get a master's degree to be competitive for future promotion. Not just in the early promotions, but if I didn't get it while I was young and had no children, I wouldn't have enough time to do it later on in life. So I decided I wanted to get an MBA because I was interested in finance. From there, I took one particular class that was an international business class. I remember being so bored with the instructor. The format was 4 hours in the evening at night school. It'd be 5 to 9 o'clock at night. I'd bring my own dinner. He would spend the entire first 2 hours just talking about current events. It's very frustrating for me. So I had no respect for this individual whatsoever because he was just wasting my time. But one day he said, "Rich Dad, Poor Dad, really good book, really opens your mind about finance. Everybody should read that book. Highly recommend it." I found myself that weekend at Walmart picking up some snacks because we were headed out for a long road trip to see my roommate in college get married. And I'm looking at the book section, and I see that book. I pick it up, I flip to the back, and I say, "Gosh, this is $10. What a waste of money." My wife, an avid reader, comes by and says, "Hey, what are you checking out?" It's this book. This instructor, he recommended it to me, but I don't trust him at all. I don't think it's worth it. She says, "Well, we've got like 12 hours in the car. You might as well buy it, and then we'll read it to each other as we drive to and from Oklahoma to Georgia." So that decision changed my life. I learned a lot about a different point of view, what passive income was all about, what it would be like to own my own corporation, really what the advantages are of earning money and then spending money and getting taxed about the residual. I was hooked. I was going to become a real estate investor. So I began reading all sorts of books. Everything I could get my hands on. Renting, single family, all sorts of different things. At that point, I'd been studying for maybe about a year, and I enrolled into a Robert Allen foreclosure seminar. The seminar was conducted over the phone, where I had a mentor that would do lessons with me over the phone. It was pretty expensive, probably the largest single purchase that I ever made. By the time I got to the end of it, I realized I knew all these things that they were already teaching me. So I got to my first deal. I actually decided my first deal should be buying a house for myself. At that point, I already owned a house, but it wasn't one that I had bought for an investment purpose, and we needed to move again. So moving from Kingfisher, Oklahoma to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, we bought a foreclosure. A HUD house, bought it for $90,000. It was a 4-bedroom, just needed some minor stuff. So we put new flooring in it, moved on down there, and not long after, I was able to refinance and pull $30,000 out of it just by getting a second loan. I was hooked. From there, I decided I need to do my first flip deal. That's what I need to do next. And so I bought another house. I still remember the street address. Rolling Green is where it was. Don't remember the particulars, but I do remember I made $10,000 over the course of the flip. I did a little bit of landscaping, repainted some rooms, a little bit of carpet work, a little bit of air conditioning, and I made 10 grand. This is great. From there, I had no fear. I think we did, in 2003, bought 10 units that year. Created ourselves about a $2,000 a month passive income. Also executed another flip that year. But I also deployed at the end of the year, so it slowed us down a little bit. From there, I'm still working full-time, and my wife's working full-time as well. We're both officers in the Air Force. 2004, we were about ready to move, and I had a friend investing friend said, hey, multifamily is really the place to go. You need to attend this multifamily boot camp with me. And so I went to a Dave Lindahl multifamily boot camp to learn how to do multifamily investing. Unfortunately, it was time for us to move, and so I was leaving Oklahoma City, which was a great place for both single-family and multifamily, and moving to Southern California in 2004. I could already see the bubble happening in 2004. There was a particular house that we wanted to maybe rent or buy, and that house cost us $3,000 to rent, or if we bought it for $900,000, it would cost us $8,000 a month for our payments. A loss of $5,000 a month, $60,000 a year. And all of my friends were saying, you need to buy it because it's going to appreciate more than $60,000 a year. Because in the last couple of years, it's been going double digits appreciation. I said, there's no way. There's no way that this is going to go on forever. Sure enough. You know what? You know the story. I'm so glad that we decided to rent that house because when we went to leave in 2007, we moved to Ohio, the entire thing was imploding and there's no way that we could have sold that house. So I was still hot to trot about multifamily. I'd been looking to try and figure out how to buy multifamily. It would have been crazy to do in California, and I wasn't exactly ready to do it afar in Oklahoma, where I was familiar with the area. So I moved to Ohio, began looking for a multifamily investment in Ohio. Eventually found a 24 unit, was vacant, needed rehab, and I plunged myself into it. Wow, was that an eye-opening experience. From issues with the contractor, which I felt like he overcharged me, even though he was a really nice guy, I just couldn't keep tabs on it well enough with my full-time job. All in all, when it came down to it, I did end up plowing a whole bunch of credit card money, maybe about $200,000 into it. I pulled out a refi, and just before the Lehman Brothers collapse happened. So grateful for that, because it stabilized the asset for me, and I would have absolutely had it blow up in my face had I not done that in time. From there, I let the asset just kind of flatline. It really wasn't making all that much money. It really wasn't losing. I was in turnover hell in the area that I was in, where someone would move in, and then instead of doing a full-year lease, they'd be out in 6 or 7 months. My turnover cost was about equal to whatever profit I had, and on and on and on it went. From there, I did my first rent-to-own deal in 2009. It was a very simple deal. I had actually bought the house for $9,000. It was a 1920s house, big house in Dayton, Ohio. I loved it. It needed some rehab. And my realtor at the time said, why don't you just buy it, rehab it, and flip it? Well, as I got into it, it needed a lot more work than I initially thought. So I tried to find different solutions to sell it. I could find no one that was interested in buying it until I had somebody approach me and say, hey, I'd be willing to buy that house, but I can't come up with the cash. If you'll finance it for me over 5-6 years, what would you think? And I said, sure, let's do it. So I sold it for $1,500 down and $475 a month for 6 years, which came to a total of about $30,000. From there, I said, this is interesting. I should do another one. And I did another one. But then I had trouble selling that one even rent to own. At that point, I had somebody approach me and say, yeah, this house is really nice and all, but I'd really like to buy that house over there. Would you buy that house for me and rent to own it back to me? I realized I am so stupid. I shouldn't be figuring out how to guess the next person that wants to, the next house they want to buy and speculate on it. I should be finding buyers that then do rent to own. I set up a website. I found the buyer first. I said, you pick whatever house you'd like. I gave them the parameters, and I'll buy it for you and rent to own it back to you. I was able to do that for several years, even though I'm still working in the Air Force. At that point, I decided I needed to do this not only for profit, but I got introduced to the idea of doing it self-directed IRA and doing an LLC with a self-directed IRA, marrying it with this rent-to-own strategy where I buy a property for about $20,000. I'd sell it on a rent-to-own contract for 8 years for about $80,000, pay about $10,000 in taxes. So I'm making about $50,000 in the middle. I think I did that math right. Math in public, not always the greatest thing. But I do that over and over again. With that strategy alone, I turned my IRA from $60,000 to what is today worth $800,000. At that point, my wife had also decided we were moving around the country, living in Colorado at the time, and we were going to move back to Ohio, but the Air Force got in the way. They said, nope, Dan, you can move, but your wife cannot move. And at that point, we had 3 young children. We weren't going to do this. So it was time for her to quit her job. At that point, we had generated enough passive income for $8,000 a month. So her quitting her job as a major in the Air Force really didn't make that big a difference for us at all. From there, in 2016, I had bought a house when we moved back to Ohio, a foreclosure that we rehabbed. I always liked to, whenever I moved, I would buy a foreclosure, rehab it so that we would take the benefit of that. We've done that several times during our career. In 2016, it was time to move again. I sold a house for a $100,000 profit and decided to buy another, a multifamily. I bought a 35-unit apartment. At this point, I'd already sold my other 24-unit at a major loss. I think I lost $50,000, $60,000 over the course of the 10-year ownership that I had on it. But I wanted to try again. I wanted to see if I could master the multifamily strategy. From there, that 35 unit is done fine. I'll give you an update on where it's at in a little bit. In 2017, I decided to turn over my Oklahoma portfolio, and so I sold all the single families and the duplexes that I had there, and I bought 16 duplex units in Oklahoma. I was going to make my fortune in multifamily because I could really see how it could scale. But it stalled again. The 16-unit duplexes needed a lot more work than I forecasted. I made some mistakes on acquisition. I ended up trusting some individuals that had been through the house that their inspections were valid. They weren't. So I was stuck. I had to plow myself through that deal as well, just like I did my first 24-unit deal. I continued to do rent-to-own in the IRA, but I realized I was getting close to retirement in the Air Force, and I really needed to get serious. I was doing about 5 or 6 deals a year, not a lot of them on the for-profit side, mostly on the IRA side. I needed real income to get me from age 40 to age 59 and a half, not IRA income. So I needed to apply the rent-to-own strategies to my own for-profit business. So I began more in earnest to do it in 2020. From there, I decided 2021 is where I needed to set the goalpost for retirement, and I did. So in 2020 was a lot of investments on rent-to-own. Eventually, retiring early in 2021, doing it full-time, we increased our income that year alone, this year alone, $150,000 in passive, just using rent-to-own strategies. At this point, our passive income is over $500,000 a year. Life is good. My recommendations for you, the things that I learned. You're going to have bumps along the way. There's no doubt about it. You have to commit to yourself that you're going to get past these obstacles. You only get the benefit from the learning if you do another deal. If you decide that you're out of this game because you got burned too bad, you don't see the gem of wisdom that comes from the hurt that you got. It's not just head learning, it's heart learning that needs to happen too, so you don't repeat those mistakes. What other things have I learned? Strategy of getting started, I always recommend to someone else. First, if you're interested in real estate investing, buy a foreclosure house for yourself to live in. It doesn't have to be a foreclosure house, but do a do-it-yourself rehab, in a live-in rehab of your own. It's a pain in the butt, there's no doubt about it, but it will teach you how involved it is. It will teach you what a pain in the butt it is. It will teach you the value of your time. And then if you've done that successfully and can either refinance or sell at the back end, now you're ready to do your own flip deal on the other end. So do a flip deal, one that is not your own deal that you're living in, that isn't too far away from where you're living. Maybe no more than 30 minutes away, because you're going to be taking a lot of trips there and back. From there, if you're still got the bug, you've got a choice. Do you want to do another flip deal, or do you want to learn a little bit about passive income? Do you want to learn what it's like to hold a rental, buy a duplex, something like that? So buy a single family that's going to give you positive cash flow, or buy a duplex that's going to give you positive cash flow. And learn about the value of depreciation on your tax return. Learn about the value of making money but not actually working at it is. From there, you've got both the strategies. Now you're ready to apply a rent-to-own strategy. Now you've got enough skills. You've got the team of a realtor. You've got some handymen. You've met some tradesmen that can do the HVAC stuff and the plumbing stuff as it comes up. Now you're really ready to do a rent-to-own strategy. Buy a house. I recommend buying foreclosures because that's where the deals are right now. There's plenty of foreclosures out there, and yet there's plenty of demand. So my overall strategy, and I'll do another video just focused on this, is to buy a foreclosure, marry it up with a rent-to-own, buyer on the other end, put those together, you make the equity sandwich in the middle, and you make the cash flow when you are able to finance it out the back end. It is awesome. 35 deals alone this year, and it's just absolutely kicking butt. Okay, I appreciate you watching today. I hope you learned something about my journey. It wasn't all flowers and bows and rainbows, but it has been a great journey. The destination is worth it. I encourage you to watch more of our videos, to subscribe. The link below will get you more access to more of our videos and our coaching and mentoring strategies. Thanks for watching again. This is Dan with Invest Rent to Own.